And the only thing that she said to me when I told her, after I saw the shingles, I asked her, have you ever thought of getting tested? She stood up and looked at me dead in the eye and told me, number one, if I ever get pregnant, I'm having an abortion. Number two, if I have HIV, let me die. Let them know when I'm dying that I have HIV, because I will not be treated the way you're being treated. Me, I want to be loved.
So our main guest here, who is making us discuss this, is Charlotte Wanja. I'm giving her an opportunity, and I'm telling her, share what you feel free to share. What you don't feel free to share, these people will know where to find you. They will find your story on social media. They will find your story on YouTube. If they go to TV stations, she's been to a couple of TV stations. And how I met her, we were last together on NTV, talking about sexual violence, especially in childhood. And asante sana for honoring the invitation. I hope our journey just began there. It's continuing and continuing. Karibu sana.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. Wow. I usually get stage fright the first 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. So if you hear my voice trembling, bear with me, kidoko. I was 6 years old when I was first sexually molested by my stepfather. Before that, we used to live with my mom and my younger sister, who's now late. And I wish to mention that as I do this, it's not so much for me, but in memory of her, because so now, we used to be very happy with my mom. It was, I would say, what I remember, it was a good home. It was a lovely home. And then he came in. And the very, very first time I had come from school, because those days, we used to go to school half day. And he made sure he would be home by 2 in the afternoon. And he called me the very first time. This is how it started. He called me. He had a booklet this size. It was called Sex Art. So he opened it and had me look at genitalia of men and women. Then he told me, I need you to go and remove your undies, then come with your mathematics book, so that it will look like I'm teaching you mathematics. I didn't understand what he meant until I went and did that and came back. It was ugly. It was ugly. And then he would finish with me. Then he would call my sister. Then he would make us sit to watch him with the house girl. But mine was more intense because it was an every day, if not every other day, that used to happen. And it came with beatings and insults and intimidation. Yeah, everything you can possibly think of that you wouldn't want someone telling you. Now, I used to tell my mother every day. For the few who have met me, they know I'm very bubbly. I used to tell my mother, and the only thing I ever heard from her was, we shall overcome, or the only person who's going to move out of my house is you, not my husband. And it went on to the point where I have become an example in my family since I was younger. Don't be like so-and-so because she's like this. I was labeled a prostitute, I was labeled a lesbian, which, by the way, I'm not. I was labeled everything. Everything. bad, big for nothing, useless. Please note, when I was in school, I used to perform very well. I remember in primary school, from class 5 all the way to class 8, I was the best in English and Kiswahili. I would be called, I was always the best overall. But I never got any support from my family. Nobody ever cared, so nobody even noticed that my grades started going down because, again, I was good in mathematics. Now I can't even stand it. I don't even like to count. I just don't like it at all. And then, one time, my late sister, I saw she had shingles because I tested positive for HIV in 1996 by virtue of I grew up knowing I'm worthless, I'm not going to amount to anything anyway. I mean, when people say, usiwe kama fulani, kazi yake tu ni ukimwi na kuzaza kwa nyumba na kuongea mambo ya urongo. I was called a liar by the liars. That's what I like to say. I was called a liar. I was labeled a liar. Why can't you just keep quiet? Why are you lying? Iyo mambo, as recently as last week. Hayo mambo unaongea mambo mbaya 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 mbaya, and I'm like, hayo mambo mnasema mambo mbaya 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 happened to me. I'm living that life. I have not believed in myself in a long time. I've always been in the wrong career because I go for an interview and I cannot be able to explain myself. And I must admit, I dated younger people than me for years. And then my sister died. And she only stayed for 4 months. And the only thing that she said to me when I told her, after I saw the shingles, I asked her, have you ever thought of getting tested? She stood up and looked at me dead in the eye and told me, number 1, if I ever get pregnant, I'm having an abortion. Number 2, if I have HIV, let me die. Let them know when I'm dying that I have HIV, because I will not be treated the way you're being treated. Me, I want to be loved. So you see, I don't know love. And in as much as right now we've reconciled with my mom, the lies are still there. She told me that she told the police, she reported to the police, and he bribed them and everything, but I know that did not happen. Because as I went on growing up, I decided when I turned 12, this is not happening to me again. I don't care. I didn't know what was happening was wrong. I don't care. If he wants to beat me to death, it's about time. So he came back from wherever, and I told him, you're not touching me today. And the beating I got that day is the reason why I have the crutches. It's the reason why I have back problems and all the others that come with it. So it's all physical, it's internal and external. It's all there, you see. And during this tussle, we used to live with my auntie, and I can't even mention her name. My mom's first cousin, she stood up to him and told him, wachana na mtoto, nichukue mimi. And do you know what his condition was? Bora akuje na angalie vile kunaenda. Awache kutusumbua. And my auntie, at the time, bus fare used to be a shilling or 2 shillings. And my auntie gave me a shilling and she told me, run. It was like 7 p.m. Run as fast as you can. Run. Run. I had a grandmother who used to live, we used to live on Jogoo Road. So I had a grandmother who used to live in Botella. And she told me, go to Shosho, tell her to give you the other shilling and go to Shosho, the one I'm named after, who's my mother's mother. So I was getting to my grandmother's house late in the night, and I told her what has been happening. And that December, I became a woman. I started my first period. And that is how God protected me from getting pregnant from this man, because if I had not fought like I did, I would have conceived his child that December. Until now, everyone's okay with it. Nobody's doing anything about it. For me, it's a story she's telling. She's a 50-year-old woman looking for attention. Atanyamaza too. See, I can't begin to explain. Last year, August, my mother was admitted in hospital. He made advances at me. He's been making advances at me. He tells me, if you want me to improve your lifestyle, but at the time he was working, he was a big person. If you want me to improve your lifestyle, if you want me to take you to college, if you want me to do things for you, you have to do what I want. That is why my late sister went to university. That's why when my late sister graduated in university, everyone was there. But when I graduated from modeling school, huyo ni malaya. Huyo ni mrongo. Huyo mwache. When I got to Form 2 high school, when we were doing social studies, that was when I found out that what was being done to me was wrong, because all along I knew it was okay, and I'm the rebellious child. We were being taught about incest. And I remember raising my hand 3 times. And when the 3rd time it clicked, I asked even about a stepfather, and it clicked. I stood up and walked out of that class. And the teacher tried to stop me, and I slapped him. And I walked out. I was done. I was ready to be everything that they say I am. You see, and even after it was decided that she should go home because nobody knows how to handle me, the person that was sent to come and pick me up, guess who? It's him. And may I demonstrate something? This is how he was holding me with his hands inside my school uniform. Nobody cares. It's in the past. You should forget about it. You are now a grown woman, so sex for you. Ushazoea tangu ukiwa mtoto. So, yeah, those are my moments. And as I sit here, I have nothing left to lose except my life. Nothing. Support of family, I don't have it. I posted in the family and on my WhatsApp about this particular function, and my younger sister posted for her own function, and everyone supported her, and nobody said a word about what I'm doing. Nobody. Only one person, my cousin, has asked me, so do you have a link or something? But nobody has ever sat and asked me, how do you live? What's going on? What can you do? Only one uncle told me, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I don't know how to help you. So here I am dealing with injuries inflicted on me by someone who's walking free, living his best life, plays his trumpet, front pew kanisani, hapo ndio yuko anachezaga trumpet hapo. Mimi ndio mbaya. Mimi ndio hata pastor wa hiyo kanisa. He told me, do you know, I don't know which lady he was talking about. She died as a virgin. And I'm like, what did I do to warrant that comment from you? It's your congregant who's supposed to be a parent who ruined me. That's why I'm what I am today. That's why at the time, I used to drink so much. Stand in the middle of Jogoo Road, wait for the fastest car to come and hit me, and I swear not one vehicle ever came. I have taken drugs overdose. Not even a stomachache. I don't get it. I have tried taking my life so many times because it did not make sense. Then I became a Muslim. And I'm not crying now as much as I used to cry then. Because when I recite the Quran, I leave the pain there. And God takes it up from there. So, I know there's a child out there who's suffering. And that is why I'm here.
Well, a better clap. Better clap. Yes, yeah. Yes, it's so powerful, very powerful. I know she will give us the links to follow her. By the way, she's learned as much as you listen to her. And I believe we are just starting. We'll go far, very far. And I know this is not in vain. It is not in vain. There's a child somewhere who has been sexually violated. He's still going through it and they don't know what to do. You're talking about sexual child abuse, and you can see for yourself. I don't want to talk a lot because I'll have my own comments. I would like to give the panelists a chance. And Nderitu, now, before you even talk, because this one you must answer if it's possible, if it's in your capacity. This is childhood sexual trauma, for real. We are talking about 6 years. When she was 6 years, sexually molested by her own stepfather. The person was supposed to protect her and guard her. Now, she says, right now as I suffer, he's walking scot-free, enjoying and still asking her, do you still want to bow down to my ways so that I can help you? I do know you haven't worked with the government. Now that there is no evidence, children don't know how to keep evidence. Sometimes they are threatened to keep quiet. I don't know how you encountered such things in the government. Chemist? I don't know. Your word. Welcome.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Susan. This is quite a challenge because I need first maybe to introduce myself. I've worked at the government chemist for the last 25 to 30 years, but I also taught for 10 years before after I left college. So for the last 25 years, I worked at the government chemist as a chemical analyst and then as a forensic analyst. That is, a forensic analyst actually makes use of this knowledge of science to bring up statements or evidence in form of a statement or a fact in science in order to promote a legal matter or a certain evidence which is required. So we actually add on to information to the courts that is scientific that will help the courts come to a conclusion about a particular case. So my experience is that most of the evidence or what comes to us at the lab for analysis is something physical, tangible. So with her kind of case, you'll see that there is nothing that happened when she was a small girl. And the only evidence that would be there, I wish there was a lawyer here, is what they call circumstantial evidence, but it also adds weight to a particular case, especially if there are witnesses who are ready to stand in court and say, yes, it is so and so. It happened, this and, So with the government chemist, we deal with physical matters. We deal with evidence that is in the form of clothes, in form of blood, or rather stains in clothes, basically biological stains such as blood, semen, saliva, and especially what we call buccal swabs from the mouth. So those are the kind of things we deal with. And any other evidence, like in blood, we look for things like presence of alcohol and drugs. And also, if blood is in clothes of the victim, we'll definitely know that this blood, if it is of the victim, we do analysis, and we find out this blood actually on the clothes of the victim belongs to the perpetrator. So you see, we are trying to link. Most of what we do is trying to use the evidence that is given, brought in by the police. We don't get the evidence from anybody else except the police. When they bring the evidence, we do analysis to try and link the accused to the material, or rather the crime, or link them to the victim. So when there is no that link in form of any object, it becomes a problem. So, and mostly, we want to tell people that you as a person actually are a scene of crime. And in most of the sexual gender-based violence, like what she had to go through as a child, actually most of the evidence that comes in, that should come in for analysis to link the perpetrator to the victim and also to the crime that they have committed, and any other evidence that is given in court actually comes from the crime scene, the area of the crime, and even the person themselves is also a crime scene, because we also get information from that person. One of them is known as a high vaginal swab. It is taken from high up in the vagina. Okay? The other is blood on the clothes. And that is why we say, please do not destroy evidence. That is one important thing everyone should know. Because of the stigma that is there in sexual violence, we find that people are so stigmatized, they feel dirty and they go and wash, and after they've washed is when they go to seek for medical help. Interesting enough, most people now are aware when you're sexually violated, you go and to the hospitals, you get your treatment against exposure to HIV, treatment against pregnancies, and treatment against any STIs, that is sexually transmitted diseases you could get. But after that, people shy off from going to report, and reporting is very important. So when we don't destroy evidence, we need to make sure we don't wash our clothes, we don't even bathe, and we report in good time. Secondly, you also need to know what you need to get from that victim, okay? Sometimes you go to hospital, they've been compromised, and they say, no, hakuna haja hii this. Sometimes you even have brought in a condom, they tell you hakuna haja hii, and you just agree. You need to know your rights, that evidence that you have should be kept. If you have not destroyed any evidence, the clothes that you are wearing, or even markings, or maybe something fell on your side of your legs, a swab should be taken. A whole examination is done in the hospitals by a nurse, and they actually strip you and get every evidence they can get from you, and you describe everything that happened. Another thing that is also forgotten is about scratching. When one is sexually abused, it's good to fight back, and when you fight back, tell them that you scratch that person so that the nail clippings can be gotten, and then from those nail clippings, there's some body tissue that was left there, even sometimes blood. And in most cases, that is ignored. So as a victim, you also need to know that if there was any scratching that was done, fight back, get evidence from the body tissues that are left on the fingernails. So you need to know even fingernails scrapping should be taken by the police, okay? Apart from the clothes and the high vaginal swab and the panty, don't wash it off, because that is where the evidence is found.
Wow.
That is.
I know you may have
evidence.
more questions.
Yeah.
A clap for Anne. She's actually an expert. Give her the mic. Give Pastor Mary, and then we can go this side afterwards. Yeah. Now we know. Now we know if we did not know. Pastor Mary Matheka, maybe your take here is to let us know, do you encounter such cases? How do you handle them? And what is your word for us? We are representing the society. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Susan. Yes, such cases we have encountered. I remember some years back, a lady came to me, and she was married. It happened when she was young, actually around 5 years. Now she is over 30. She's in marriage. She didn't know how to handle it, but she told me, I realized this is what is happening to my marriage, because when my husband touches me, I don't want. I withdraw from such. And that is when she realized that what happened, and it was a case also of a relative. So these things are happening. And as a pastor, one of the things I usually tell parents, and that know who is with your child. What are they doing? He may be your brother, he may be your husband, but make sure as a mother you play your role, especially when it is a girl. But also in nowadays things have changed. Also young men, because relatives, when they come to our homes, we are allowing them to spend with us, to be with our children. And because they are sons, you tell your sons, go and sleep in your bedroom with so and so, without knowing whether this child is already practicing homosexuality, because we have had cases whereby a son has been introduced to homosexuality by a brother. As a mother, you are not aware. So we can't be ignorant. What I need to say is, as parents, don't be ignorant. When your child raises an alarm, don't beat them. Don't say, no, you are lying. Sit down with that child, listen to them, and be able to dig deeper and know what my child is saying. Could it be the truth? Yes, they have said the father, because I also dealt with a case whereby the mother had twins, daughters. No, not daughters, sons. The father was doing the act with them, practicing homosexuality with the sons. And you see, many times, the reason why many people fear to speak is when they speak, they'll be told, you are lying. How can your father do such? No, you want me to end this marriage with your father. So let's know, these are things that are happening from even people that we trust. There is a scripture in the Bible that says in Jeremiah 5:26, among my people I have found wicked men. This is God who is saying, among the people that I created, I have found wicked men. So in our society, even in church, there is wickedness. Men that have chosen to do things that are not godly. Women that have chosen to do things that are not godly. So when somebody raises such a case, it is good that we don't dismiss them. Listen to them. If you can't handle it, you can also ask for help so that we can be able to deal with these situations. In the society we are facing this. We go to a servant of God, we are facing the same. But I am here to say, there are still genuine men and women of God who fear God. So let's not be afraid. Seek for help, and you will get that help. And allow me this finally to say, when you encounter such kind of things, my prayer, I know it is not easy, is that you find within your heart to forgive. Because that is where healing arises from. You forgive, deal with the pain, seek for help, and also spiritual help. So if the spiritual part is not dealt with, it will be repeated again.
Thank you. Thank you. You can pass the mic. Yes, you can hear Pastor with the difference, yeah? She's so realistic, acknowledges the pain in the church, acknowledges the limitation in the church, and I guess that's why we also work so easily with you. Listen to the child. Do not dismiss anyone who says they have been sexually violated. And for children, we say, and this is internationally recognized, that best interest of the child. First believe them. Then later on we can deal with them if it was a lie. a child's innocence destroyed at the age of 6 years, and now she's 50, 47. Yes, you can imagine. You're talking about 41 years of pain, and you can still see the pain. Yeah, so it's not worth it. Yes, Dr. Rose Kithiora, you have worked a lot with women like Charlotte, and even what you're hearing from Pastor Mary. I know we have shared a lot about your work there, and I don't know, like, what can we learn from, the way you've been working with these violated women and girls in the States? What can we learn from them? As Africans, is there something we can learn that can help us? With the short time we've been together, we've shared a lot with you. You've been in our events on sexual gender-based violence, especially in online colleges and universities, African Nazarene universities here. Maybe there is something we can learn from the best practice that you have there. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Susan, for your time, and to my colleagues and sister Saada for sharing your story as well. Wangari Maathai in Unbowed started by saying, what people see as fearlessness is really persistence. And what Sister Saada is doing is being very persistent. What these women and girls who experience gender-based violence, and especially sexually intimidation, harassment of any kind from childhood, is that persistence and that belief that in their own story, they know very well that this is their story. So starting from that empathetic, compassionate perspective in believing in these women and girls. So in my experience, working with battered women's shelter victim services, rape crisis centers, as well as in the context of the refugee populations that I worked with, the Somali Bantu, Sierra Leone, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Liberia. Each of these groups' needs are very specific. Those that plague the community from Somalia are very different than those that plague the community, say, from Liberia and Sierra Leone. Conflict is conflict. War has no time, no place, and the violence is absolutely very intense. Much more for children. So when you think of children seeing their families being violated and being destroyed, and then maybe even those children being conscripted into becoming the very perpetrators, killers, and so on, rapists at age 9, violating 50-year-old women who are old enough to be their grandmothers, and so on. That child now matriculates into the US, where they're supposed to be resettled, learning these skills, how to participate properly on campuses, in their school systems. They encounter very serious problems. With the Somali Bantu community, there was a very heavy literacy issue because Somalia has been at war for so long. And so going to school is very informal and very lucid and fluid, because if conflict breaks out, you're not interested in school. As Maslow's hierarchy of needs says, if your most basic needs are not being met, you cannot transcend. And so these children cannot transcend and properly matriculate in this resettlement process accordingly, because they are still dealing with the post-conflict traumas that they have endured with war, that their families are now currently enduring. Their families themselves can disintegrate into despair, disillusionment. You're in a new culture, you don't speak the language, you don't understand the financial literacy pieces. It's not that you're not driven about wanting to work. It is that you are unable to actually transition, to have that bridge. And now that's where we come in with that social work. I'm getting the counselors, the police, and so on. Because that disillusionment and that depression then transitions into violence in the home, verbal, psychological, and so on. That child is not going to report the family because they don't want to lose that family member. They've already lost a lot from where they came from, Kakuma, Dadaab, and everywhere else. So they continue that cycle, take that violence to school, dealing with it incorrectly, with substance abuse, anger that is beyond anger. It is now rage. So even a simple disagreement in the classroom, it spirals into something it doesn't need to be. And the child gets reprimanded instead of the faculty or the teachers or the tutors understanding where this child is coming from. Again, dealing with stereotyping, dealing with racism in a culture that does not understand you in the first place. So this child stands no chance. Stood no chance in Kakuma and Dadaab, stands no chance in America. And this is supposed to be the land of the free and the brave. So how do we help? How does Rosa, Kithiora, help such a child? Is by making sure that not just that you meet the needs of this child, but that you work with the families themselves, get them the counseling they need, the appropriate counseling. So that I may not be the correct person, but Dr. Susan is, because she understands culturally what's needed. That Sister Saada is the one who I bring to Halima and Hawa Mugaza, because she understands Islam. Instead of me taking her to a church where she's not going to be understood on multiple levels because of the religious belief, because of the lack of understanding culturally, and there are just entirely too many layers to work through. So understanding that person comes to the absolute lowest denominator. And if you can't understand the adult, you will not be able to help that child. And generationally, what have you done as a service provider for trauma-informed care? You have failed this child, so this child is just going to replicate exactly what has happened in the home post-conflict. When we think of the Mandela Fellows Initiative, where I serve as a mentor, mentorship is absolutely very important and it matters. We have kept on saying here, monkey see, monkey do. Well, this whole concept of monkey see, monkey do mentorship becomes that dopamine in the positive. So you flip it on the positive side. That if this child is able to see positive role models in Dr. Susan, positive role models in Sister Saada, then they'll be able to matriculate accordingly. I envelope this in this particular initiative. The Parent is Young African Leaders initiative, which is in Washington, D.C. And it's supposed to be a reciprocal program for individuals who have left high school and onwards between the ages of 20 to 35. They are very driven individuals. Some of them have performed regularly in school. Some of them did not necessarily perform very well in school. And others are profoundly gifted on the border of being geniuses in their own right. And they are selected to represent their African countries as ambassadors. These individuals get entrepreneurial skills. So if they're interested in the arts, they get affiliated into a university campus abroad. They interact with leaders within the community as well as within the government. They get to do community service and they get to commiserate with American students so that it's a symbiotic process. It's not just the Americans pouring into these African students, but also vice versa. And those American students also get to come over. I've got 4 mentees currently. 2, one is Samburu and has an educational learning initiative specifically geared towards shepherd learning, because in their community they move from place to place. And he felt that there is a big loss within the community because every time they have to move with their animals, they lose in terms of education, which means this new generation continues to become morons and so on, but they lose out economic power, empowerment, and so on. Lifting their community up and themselves and their families is not going to happen. You then envelope into harmful cultural practices of forced marriages, child marriages, female circumcision, female genital mutilation, and we talk language, because as you deal with this population and deal with these issues, you have to be respectful of the fact that these individuals don't necessarily view their families as mutilators. They don't view their families as violators necessarily, of course. Now when we talk about how this initiative helps these students to serve on that entrepreneurial portion, they then become the mentees. The mentees then become the mentors. One is Gabra, and she's dealing specifically with female circumcision in her community, educating against it, and then working on this other side for economic empowerment, because a circumcised girl then gets married off, so there's an economic piece here to it. You can't just tell people to stop a practice without giving them an option for how they're going to survive. So even as service providers, we have to understand that fact. Africana College has a wonderful life skills program that you heard about from Councillor Miss Jean. This we do career development and mentorship in. One of the activities we did was them creating their vision boards. Your vision board is your life, it's your dream. Nobody can tell you about your dream. Nobody could have told Sister Sada she'd be here sharing her story and how it would then matriculate into something else that's meaningful for others. These particular students are learning from each other, and they are also learning from the individuals who are providing these lesson plans to them. They are therefore creating the pipeline for their own success. Be your own dream. That's what I keep pushing for them. Whatever you've envisioned for yourself, you're the only one who can bring it to life. Your yesterday does not dictate your tomorrow. Thank you.
Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Kithiora. Such an amazing, so nice here again. And she echoes issues of poverty, issues of immigration. And I know if we had more time, she would tell us how people get sexually violated, seeking for these papers to stay, right? And she has mentioned about post-selection violence. And I think that really motivated me for my PhD, because I encountered very many integrated, internally displaced persons who are actually taking care of children that were born out of rape during the post-selection violence 2007-2008 in Kenya. There's a booklet that I printed. One purpose for that booklet is to raise funds to keep this show alive. So if you can grab a copy, well, we've set it at 500, but you can buy more than 500. We will appreciate. And I know Alan has it somewhere. David, please support us. And you can read more on the effects of trauma from that small booklet. We have tried to simplify the concepts so that everybody can understand. That's a small booklet. And we intend to do more and more as we do this education on mental health to many people. The only boy child on set, Mr. Joseph Theuri, I know you did your research work on teenage pregnancy. And a number of those girls were sexually molested into motherhood. I know you may not talk about which case is which, but you can be general and let us know, how do we protect our girls from all these forms of sexual and gender-based violence? And what is the role of women? What is the role of men? Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Daktari. And first of all, to say that my research, I did it in Mombasa County. And it was so interesting to discover some of those things, because I realized that in Kilifi, where I did what I was doing at is piloting, I realized that there was so many cases, especially a girl molested or sexually abused at 9 years and 8 years old, and the community, they could not even see as if it is a problem. And also in Kitui, as well as in Migori, you find that these cases, they are very high. And in this research, I discovered that it starts with the family. And we had our sister Sharon talking about it, that the family need to support the child so that they can provide the safe space where the child can be supported and also to share this abuse. Then you find that in the family, they need also to take care of the child, especially when they are growing up. When I listen to Sharon, it takes me back that there are some cases which you find the child allowed 2 to 6 years. They are intent to ask so many questions. And if you have some of those children, they usually ask so many questions. And if they have parents or caregivers around them, they usually ask, if it is a girl, how comes that I don't have pennies? How comes that I don't have, if it's a boy, how comes that I have that intruding thing in me? So they usually need those answers. But you find we dismiss them. If they are not, those answers they are not answered there, then they go to school. And that is where now they are introduced. And in school, it is so interesting that we have even teachers here. And you can tell teachers also and our community as a African, we don't condone those kind of conversation in school. And I'm happy that this program of school nowadays they talk about sexual related matters. Although I was scrutinizing that, given that my wife is also a teacher, so I was scrutinizing what they teach, and she was telling me that they teach just to protect your body and organs, to know your organs. This is my body and should be protected and should be mine only. And that is what they are taught. And most of the time, they usually teach them pray. You know, children, they like praying aloud, and also artwork. So I feel that the program nowadays, it is so good. Then in the school also there is peers who influence these children. Remember, they did not get that information at home. So this peer, they can give them the long information. And you can see, even Shalom, she is talking about where she was exposed. And you can imagine a situation where there is a child where they have phone. Nowadays we talk about social media. They can expose themselves in those social media and look pornography and also look for those materials. And also they can hide and go practice touching those organs and also practicing. And you can imagine also when I was looking at this research, I realized that also the church, I interviewed the church leaders and also mosque imam, whereby they were also ashamed sharing about this issue. Although at the same time, we are encouraging them to talk about it, because if we fail to talk about it, it will never get healed. And Madam Shalom, this is the beginning, and you are doing very well to get that confidence. And then I realized that the government itself has put measures to curb these issues, though now there is a question which was asked about the lawyer, but I happen that I have worked with closely with the lawyers and doctors, and recently I was telling someone I may differ with some people, because if there is no evidence, what are we going to show in the court? At the same time, you find that sometimes you may like someone so much, but with the evidence, it doesn't matter whether you are protecting that person. You have to do the right thing and to protect that child. Like how Shalom, she is very bitter with the stepfather. She is angry, and you can imagine Shalom, given that she has lived those many years, having going over and over those things, and nobody was willing to handle this. And even right now, as we speak, you can tell she needs a support, even though the government and the legislature maybe has passed through laws. Is there someone to implement them? And that is where I was coming in as a researcher and also counselor, finding that we need people who can stand and be confident talking about this issue without fear. As a boy child, there is a myth that in Africa, boy child is a man enough. And you are not told, you are not oriented at what stage you are supposed to be a man enough. And it is very important for us to talk about it without fear, and also to encourage young boys and girls to have a healthy relationship. Because like what I said, in counseling, you find that some of the things which we put them as a shame, they are very helpful to explain to those young people so that they can lead away those questions which they may have.
Wow.
Yes, thank you so much.
However shameful we think it may be.
Yes, thank you.
Wow. Joseph, and I know even Joseph will continue having conversations with many of us. I know at Pentecost, you've been seeing Joseph there, very passionate about the girl child. You can see where he's coming from, and he's a father of a daughter.
Yes, I am a father of 2 daughters.
2 daughters.
Yes.
Wow, congrats. So we know. So he's male championing for the girl child because it was girl teenage pregnancy, not boy.
Yes, it is girls. Pregnancy.
Yeah, you get the point. So I think he's telling us in another way that we need evidence-based information that we can argue with. And he's also telling us, don't run away from the truth. Face it. And I think Charlotte is a champion who is telling us, even if I'm told, shut up, don't talk about it. She's feeling motivated to save another guy, another child there. She's feeling motivated to empower parents to listen to those stories that sometimes we find silly. And you know, children have ways of telling you that they are being sexually molested. One of it, if it's in the family, they are afraid of a certain family member. Kindly follow and find out why. Or you find your child telling you, Mommy, come and touch me here. Daddy, come and touch me here. And they don't have the concept of sex and sexuality as we do. But we don't give attention to it. Or even when they tell you, so-and-so touched me on where teacher said don't touch. And you just ignore. And you say, shut up, what are you trying to say?